In my past life, I fought with stray dogs for food and was kicked to death for stealing something to eat. When I opened my eyes again, I had become the long-lost true heiress. The fake heiress looked at me with venom and humiliated me. You're just an unwanted stray child. Don't even think about stealing our parents' love. No one has ever spoken to me so closely before. I smiled at her happily and sincerely complimented. Your voice sounds so lovely. Framed and about to be slapped by my own mother. I looked utterly enchanted. Mom's hand smells so sweet. Even the wind from her slap is delightful. When my brother made me drink the milk he disliked, I was deeply moved. So this is how good it feels to be taken care of by my brother. Later, seeing me being bullied, kneeling on the ground trembling, the whole family became frantic. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. My brain ached as if pierced by needles. The restaurant owner's kick landed right on my head. The pain so intense I nearly lost consciousness instantly. It's just a pity I still didn't get to eat that warm meal. You shouldn't steal food. I rubbed my head and opened my eyes in confusion. I was actually inside a car. Seeing me awake, the driver snorted disdainfully. I heard him mutter under his breath, "Country bumpkin. All you do is sleep as soon as you get in the car." I startled, instantly arching my back and couldn't help but shrink into the corner. Where are you taking me? I trembled with fear. Before, there were many bad uncles trying to catch me. They beat me badly, and I barely managed to escape with my life. Seeing me speak, the driver suddenly changed his previously dismissive attitude and smiled brightly. "Young miss, don't be afraid. I'm your family's driver. As soon as Madam heard you'd been found, the whole family has been waiting for your reunion." I didn't understand, but suddenly a flood of memories that weren't mine rushed into my mind. I turned out to be the true heiress who had been maliciously swapped at birth. Now the girl who has replaced me is the daughter of that couple. She has enjoyed over a decade of privileged life, with a beautiful name, Nicola. She has loving parents and an elder brother. She has lived a carefree princess life without worries about food or clothing. The original owner of this body was named Ruth. For over a decade, the original owner had never attended a single day of school. From the moment she gained consciousness, she never had a full meal. She had to cut grass for pigs on the mountain, wash clothes for the entire family, and when there was free time, there was endless farm work to do. She was tanned dark by the sun, grew up thin and small, filled with low self-esteem and reluctant to speak. Upon learning that she was actually the long-lost daughter of a wealthy family, she became so excited after getting into the car that she suffered a heart attack and never opened her eyes again. As I came to understand everything, tears of guilt kept falling uncontrollably. "I'm sorry. I don't even know how I ended up here. The original owner was just about to have the best life possible." I cowered humbly in the corner, sobbing while covering my mouth. I was just a worthless little beggar, kicked to death while trying to beg for food. I didn't know how to leave, but if my original owner ever woke up, could I at least have a few more full meals before going? The car stopped, and I stumbled out in a daze. Before me stood an excessively exquisite large house, with 3 people standing at the entrance. A beautiful little girl stood in the middle, her eyes red and tears still hanging at the corners. I cautiously approached, only to hear the boy say loudly, "Nicola, don't be afraid. No one in this house can lay a finger on you." How wonderful, I thought to myself. He seems like a really good older brother. Marlon turned his gaze towards me and frowned deeply. "This can't be my sister. She looks like some beggar from who knows where." My heart trembled, and I instinctively hid behind the woman. I don't know why, but I felt a strong sense of familiarity with her. She must be the original owner's mother. I pouted my lips and apologized to the original host once again. "Please let me call her Mom too." "Mom." Mother unintentionally moved aside. She seemed somewhat awkward but still forced a smile and nodded at me. "So you are Ruth, my dear child. You're home now." Hearing these words, I couldn't help but nod, tears of emotion welling up in my eyes. How wonderful. I have a home now. Nicola also came over, her fair hand holding mine as she smiled brightly. I should call you sister. Sister. Welcome home. I gave her a faint smile, thinking to myself that she was a good person too, as everyone was heading back to the house together. Nicola suddenly turned around, her round almond-shaped eyes glaring at me, and muttered under her breath, "Don't be ungrateful. You can't compete with me." Looking at her beautiful face, I lowered my head in slight shame. "You're really pretty, and your voice is lovely too." Nicola was stunned for a moment, then sneered, "You're insane." Entering the house, I was so nervous I didn't know where to stand. The place was far too exquisite. The floor's cleanliness practically blinded me, making me even more flustered. "Sis, you came back so suddenly. The room we prepared for you isn't ready yet." Nicola rubbed her eyes and said guiltily, "It's all my fault. Don't blame Mom. If it really comes to it, you can sleep in my room, and I'll go sleep in the storage room." Marlon darkened his expression and snorted coldly. "Nicola, you've been pampered since childhood. How could you go to such a place?" Then he turned his gaze to me and said with disgust, "You reek terribly. Just make do in the storage room for a few nights." I quickly nodded, not daring to hesitate for even a second. Mother originally wanted to explain a bit more, but seeing I wasn't upset at all, she didn't say anything further. Several people led me to a small room on the first floor. Opening the door, I saw a clean bed and a small desk lamp inside. The room was dim and had a slight odor, but this was the best place I'd ever slept in since I was born. I turned back and bowed deeply to them. "Thank you. Thank you all." The crowd looked at each other in confusion, seeing everyone frozen in surprise. I wondered if my gratitude hadn't been expressed sufficiently. My family has provided me with such excellent living conditions that I should kneel down to express my gratitude. Thinking this, I immediately dropped to my knees with a thud, pressing my forehead to the ground, offering sincere thanks once again. This time, my usually cold and sarcastic eldest brother instantly jumped in alarm, almost reflexively pulling me back up to my feet. His brows were furrowed so tightly they could crush a fly. "What are you doing? No one asked you to kneel." I rubbed my eyes, quietly keeping everyone's kindness in my heart. By evening, the family was preparing to eat. I was so hungry that I kept rubbing my stomach, and without waiting for Mother to speak, I had already picked up my rice bowl, shoveling rice into my mouth with my hands. Marlon was displeased again. He slammed the table hard and scolded, "Where are your manners? Don't you know how to use chopsticks?" I had no choice but to pinch the chopsticks and continue shoveling rice into my mouth. I had never used chopsticks before and knew how awkward I must have looked. After a few clumsy attempts, I reluctantly put down the bowl. "I'm sorry," I instinctively apologized. "Please don't drive me away." Mother's initially disdainful expression softened again. She let out a heavy sigh and personally picked up some meat for me. "Don't just eat rice. Help yourself to whatever you like. Auntie Lucy, please get Ruth a spoon." Nicola volunteered and trotted off to fetch the spoon. But while coming over, she accidentally tripped, sending the spoon flying onto my face and smashing my rice bowl. "Sorry, sis. I was in too much of a hurry. Are you okay?" Nicola looked at me with sparkling eyes, as if expecting something, but I had no mind to care about the pain on my face, only kneeling on the ground heartbroken, picking up those grains of white rice and stuffing them into my mouth. I was so anxious that tears kept falling. "It's edible. It's all edible. I can eat all of this. It's still clean even if it falls on the ground." The cleanest meal I've had in all these years was when a restaurant owner threw away the leftovers from customers' plates. Most of the time, I scavenge through trash, and occasionally, if I'm lucky, I might find a small piece of bread someone took a bite of and discarded. When I'm truly desperate with hunger, I even swallow my pride and compete with stray cats for food. Kind-hearted people often leave some cat food and water for stray cats. I've tasted a few pieces. They're crunchy, very salty, and fishy. Perhaps my appearance startled Nicola. as the tears she had prepared froze in her eyes. For once, I felt somewhat at a loss. In the end, it was my mother who couldn't bear to watch any longer. She picked me up, and with one bounce, realized I was frighteningly light. Nicola and I were the same age, yet she stood a head taller than me. I looked like a stunted clown, clearly having endured much unseen hardship. My mother's eyes flickered with a hint of sadness before she quickly suppressed it. She personally wiped my hands clean, her tone gentle. Don't eat anything that falls on the ground from now on. It's not clean and will give you a stomachache. Rest at home for a few days, then go to school with your brother and sister. I was staring intently at my mother's face when I heard the words "go to school," and immediately felt overjoyed. I can go to school too. A few days later, I finally began to adapt somewhat to their way of life. That morning, Marlon looked at the milk in his hand, his expression turning sour again. Drinking milk every day is making me sick. As he spoke, he made a gagging motion. Just as I was slowly walking by, Marlon glanced sideways and suddenly said, "Ruth, do you want some milk?" He smiled and said, "You can have my cup." I paused, unable to believe my ears, and stammered, "Really? Thank you, brother." I grinned happily. "You're so kind." Marlon was slightly taken aback, then snorted coldly, "Who knows if you're genuinely well-behaved or just plain crazy?" I gave him a tight-lipped smile, fidgeting uncomfortably with my hands. Then, the glass of milk was pushed toward me. I swallowed hard, picked up the glass, and gulped it down in big, noisy swallows. It was sweet, with a hint of creamy caramel fragrance. So this is what milk tastes like when it's not expired. I tap my chest, feeling a slight urge to burp. Nicola walks over at this moment and bumps into me, just in time to help me let out a satisfying burp. I look at Nicola with gratitude. "Hello, brother." "Hello, sister." Marlon is in the 3rd year of junior high, while Nicola and I are in the 1st year, and we're not in the same class. The teacher asked me to stand on the podium and introduce myself to everyone. I didn't expect to go through this again, and immediately felt so nervous that I couldn't stop swallowing. The teacher tapped the desk and urged, "Hurry up. Don't waste everyone's study time." I was so startled that I trembled, becoming even more unable to speak. The classmates below quickly joined in the teasing. "Speak up. Trembling like that. Did you piss yourself in fear? Are you even a girl? Hilarious. Looking so scrawny. Such a country bumpkin. Can't even string a sentence together." Listening to each insult, I clenched my lower lip hard. After spending a few comfortable days at the Maxwell's house, I almost forgot. This is the kind of life I should be living in my daily routine. "I'm sorry." Before I could finish my apology, the teacher impatiently waved his hand and shooed me away. "Don't waste time. There are only 2 empty seats left in the back of the class. The one on the left is for the class monitor, Michael. The other empty seat is next to that little delinquent with dyed yellow hair. Just find a spot to sit for now, and don't disrupt my class." Being ousted from my position, I heaved a huge sigh of relief. The class monitor must be a really good person too. I quickly walked over and stood beside Michael, wanting to take a seat inside. The classmates' gazes swept over me with ill intent, but Michael just smiled and generously let me take the seat. Michael is also good-looking, gentle and refined, slender and tall. I couldn't help but blush. After the crowd listlessly withdrew their gazes, I took out my brand-new textbook and caressed it reverently several times. I had never attended school before and could barely recognize a few characters, but I didn't dare say it. I feared disappointing my family, so even if it meant gritting my teeth, I was determined to keep listening. But when the lecture had gone on for over 10 minutes, the teacher handed out a test paper from the front row. Joint pop quiz. 20 minutes to finish. I was stunned when the paper reached me. Apart from a few numbers, I couldn't understand anything else. I endured an exceptionally agonizing 20 minutes. In the past, I felt ashamed of my origins, ashamed of scavenging for food, But never before had I so viscerally realized that my greatest shame was my lack of knowledge. I know nothing. After scribbling a few random numbers, I handed in the test paper. After class, I felt so wronged I wanted to cry, and instinctively sought to talk to Nicola. I whispered to Michael, "Can you let me out for a moment?" Michael didn't move a muscle. Slender fingers turned a page of the book, reading with great concentration. "Hello. I want to go out for a bit." I didn't expect Michael to still ignore me. He turned a deaf ear to what I said. Or rather, he was ignoring me. I pursed my lips and stepped back. The next class will start soon. Since it was an in-class quiz with few questions, the teacher had already graded all the papers in just over 10 minutes. The teacher's face was stern as they called out the scores one by one from highest to lowest. My head sank lower and lower, my heart pounding with intense fear. Surely they won't call me out. After all, I just arrived in this class and still don't know anything. As I was thinking, the teacher's displeased voice suddenly rose. "Ruth, stand up." I was so startled that I trembled and shakily stood up. The teacher slapped the blackboard loudly. 9 points. Class, our new student, Ruth, has set the lowest record in our class history, dragging down our overall average. Let's give her a round of applause. Scattered claps mixed with laughter, as I kept my head down stubbornly, tears falling one by one. My heart ached with a sour pain. I'm sorry. No one heard my apology. For the entire class that followed, the teacher didn't let me sit down. I stood in front of my chair, silently crying the whole time. There were always classmates with ill intentions turning around to stare at me, so I had to lower my head even further, gripping my hands tightly. When class finally ended, I couldn't wait to leave. I can't go to school. I'm not suited for it. The atmosphere here is just too terrifying. I don't want to stay here anymore. Hello. Could you let me out? Please. Michael still ignores me, even smiling and chatting with classmates nearby. I wiped my tears, trying to climb over his desk, but was Michael blocked in my path. His face was cold, his gaze filled with the familiar malice. You'll dirty my books. Slowly, I knelt down, and under Michael's raised eyebrows, crawled out from between his legs. Oh my God. Come quick. Someone's crawling under the class monitor's crotch. The classmates burst into laughter, with a few deliberately leaning close to my ear and laughing especially loudly. It's okay, I told myself. This wasn't the first time I'd had this kind of experience. I used to wander around, and often kids my age would throw stones at me. When I couldn't run away, they'd make me crawl between their legs. If they were in a good mood, they might even give me a couple of coins as pocket money. Just as I was crawling out smoothly, I looked up and saw Nicola passing by the classroom door. Our eyes met, and I instinctively smiled at her. It's my sister. Then I saw Nicola widen her eyes, then turn her face sharply to the side and walk away quickly. I stayed in the bathroom until school was over. After returning home, I locked myself in my room, took out the books from my backpack, and started recognizing the characters one by one. But I'm just too stupid. No matter how hard I try, I just can't learn it. Preoccupied with my thoughts, I barely touched my dinner. Tears fell like broken strings, drop by drop into the bowl. Nicola glanced at me but said nothing, continuing to eat with his head down. Mother grew displeased again seeing me cry non-stop. Unhappy at school. What's wrong with you? Speak up if you have something to say. Crying won't solve anything. I shrugged my shoulders, utterly helpless. I'm scared. I cried and said, I can't do anything. The teacher scolded me today, saying I'm dragging the class down. I'm just terrible. I can't do anything at all. I shouldn't even be going to school. What kind of talk is that? My mother was puzzled. School is a place for teaching and nurturing. If you already knew everything, what would be the point of going to school? But I still didn't want to go. That night, I was so overwhelmed with worry that I actually developed a high fever, burning with delirium. I had no choice but to lie on the floor as I used to, waiting for my temperature to drop naturally. Eventually, I completely lost consciousness. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself in a hospital. What's wrong with me? As luck would have it, a nurse came in to change my and seeing me awake, hurriedly called the Maxwell household. Before long, my mother arrived belatedly. She sat gracefully on the chair, her gaze inquisitive yet flickering with a trace of heartache. It was burned like that. Why didn't you call for help? I stared at me mother's face, feeling inexplicably wronged and sad. This is Mom. So when you're sick, Mom will be by your side. I cried silently and whispered, I don't dare. Mother sighed, reached out to pull the blanket up a little, and her tone softened. Ruth, you are my own daughter. You can be braver. With teary eyes, I couldn't help but ask her, then will you love me? Mother pursed her lips but finally nodded. My eyes lit up. Then, do you like me? Mother hesitated for a moment, but upon seeing my frail and sickly body, she slowly nodded. How wonderful. I seem to have no regrets left. This illness feels like it has accumulated all the pain from the past decade or more. I kept running a fever, kept getting injections and taking medicine. In my spare time, I flipped through textbooks I couldn't understand, trying to make sense of them, but I really couldn't understand. So I had to start by learning to recognize the characters first. During this time, my father finally returned from his business trip abroad. He and my mother came to the hospital to see me together. But the moment I saw him, my eyes welled up with tears. I couldn't wait to call out, Dad, is that you? Father's usually stern face inexplicably softened for a moment. He nodded, and suddenly I beamed with joy. Dad. Mom. Father hesitated briefly before placing his hand atop my head. That hand was broad and warm, carrying the familiar warmth of a father. I secretly buried myself under the blanket and, once again, cried like a coward. This happiness was stolen. I wouldn't dare ask for more. After this, Marlon actually came to see me too. When he learned that I was studying but couldn't read, he stared at me in astonishment for a long while. I instinctively gave him a bright smile. Brother, I had a very hard life before and never had the chance to study, but I'm actually very smart. Really. I could sense the shock in his gaze, and perhaps a fleeting moment of discomfort. In the end, he rushed out and came back with a pile of picture books for me. A month has passed since I was discharged from the hospital. Soon it will be Nicola's and my birthday. Mother has granted me special permission to recuperate at home until after the birthday celebration. On that day, Nicola wore an exceptionally beautiful princess dress. Her hair was jet black and silky, with natural curls at the ends, making her look every bit like a little princess. I see it with my own eyes, and even though I'm not as beautiful as her, my heart is still filled with joy. Mother also prepared a dress for me, but I was so thin and small that it looked utterly unremarkable on me. Fortunately, during my time at the Maxwells, my skin became fairer. The years of grime on my face faded away, and gradually, features resembling my mother's began to emerge. On this birthday, the Maxwell family invited many people as usual. The elders exchanged pleasantries. Marlon also played with boys his own age. As for Nicola, she stood in the center of the crowd like the moon surrounded by stars, basking in everyone's blessings. Nicola, who's that? The daughter of your family's nanny? Someone asked aloud. Nicola gave me a complicated look but remained silent. I smiled at them, then hid alone in a corner, eating the sweet cake. A sister who was clearly older than me and Nicola quietly came to my side. She studied me for a moment, then suddenly grinned slyly. My name is Sabrina. Little sister, are you the biological daughter of the Maxwell family? She leaned close to me and whispered, aren't you jealous? They're only nice to Nicola. I quickly shook my head. Nicola is adorable. It's only right that everyone treats her well. Sabrina looked at me as if I were a fool. You could have had all this to yourself. How can you not resent her? She stole your parents from you. I'm feeling a bit unwell. Don't talk nonsense. Nicola is my sister. Sabrina was truly speechless this time, as she seemed unable to find a suitable excuse. Meanwhile, Nicola was unwrapping the gifts everyone had given her, and someone had presented her with a pair of beautiful shoes. Nicola put on her shoes and danced gracefully under the admiring gazes of the crowd. She danced all the way up to the second floor, and at the end, bowed deeply to everyone in the center of the room. I clapped along with the crowd. She danced so well, unlike me, who can do nothing, has no dreams, and no talent. I want to return to my little room. As I passed by the second floor, I suddenly saw Sabrina appear behind Nicola. She was clapping her hands but subtly pushed Nicola from behind. I was startled, and my body reacted faster than my mind. Rushing forward, my sister is in danger. Nicola fell heavily onto me. I held her as we tumbled down the steps and rolled further down the stairs. The crowd gasped in shock. By the time my mother looked over from the crowd, Nicola and I had already landed on the ground. My mother hurried over. She picked up Nicola, examined her from head to toe, then turned her gaze to me. I was just about to say I was fine when a slap came my way. Ruth, after pretending for so long, you still can't tolerate Nicola. I've told you many times, Nicola will always be my daughter. I've raised her for over a decade, and you've only been back for a few months. I really thought you were a good girl, but I never expected you to push Nicola down the stairs. I was at a loss, bewildered by the hostile gazes the adults were giving me. Only Marlon suddenly frowned, looking utterly confused. Mom, what are you talking about? Nicola slipped on the second floor, and it was Ruth who caught her. Nicola finally snapped out of her daze. She rubbed her head, as if just realizing the situation. Mother stood frozen in place, clenching her fists, unable to resist looking at Nicola. Nicola, what on earth happened? Nicola opened her mouth, hesitated for a long moment, then finally said softly, "It was Ruth who caught me." My face burned with pain, and my heart ached fiercely. But hearing Nicola say this suddenly made me feel incredibly happy. It was just a misunderstanding from Mom, and it's good that it's been cleared up. I don't expect my mother to truly treat me as her own, because apart from the blood relation, Nicola is the child she has lovingly raised for over a decade. Today, I can stand here, have a warm meal, sleep in a cozy bed, and even enjoy a sweet cake on this day. I am already very content. I smiled at my mother and Nicola, then turned my gaze to Marlon, giving him a genuine smile as well. A person stood up, brushed the dust off their skirt, and slowly walked away with the imprint of 5 fingers still visible on their face. I don't know what else happened after this farce. I just lay alone in bed and fell into an exceptionally deep sleep. In the dream, I saw a girl with an indistinct face. She was the same height as me, equally shy. She touched the clothes I was wearing and smiled especially sweetly. Somehow, I suddenly realized who she was. At this moment, my heart is filled with reluctance, but I still resolutely took off my clothes and handed them to her. You're back, so I'll be leaving now. Your family is wonderful. You have a considerate older brother, a beautiful younger sister, and parents who take great care of you. Oh, by the way, today your mom slapped me, but don't be angry. She was just worried in the moment. I've already talked to her, and she said she loves you very much. At the end, I bowed deeply to her. Thank you for letting me experience such a wonderful life. I have no regrets now. I silently waited to disappear, but then I saw the shadow in front of me ripple like waves. She caressed the clothes lovingly, yet shook her head at me. She's leaving. In my panic, I couldn't help but reach out to stop her. Where are you going? This is your body. If anyone should leave, it should be me. She remained silent, but suddenly I understood what she meant. She also saw the life I had lived over the past decade or so. She couldn't bear the thought of me suffering again. Compared to the miserable life I had as a beggar before, she actually felt that I was the one who deserved redemption more. I cried out in my dream, "How could there be someone as wonderful as you, as kind as you?" I struggled, not knowing how to break free. only to watch helplessly as she gradually faded away, until she completely vanished. I opened my eyes. I knew, from this moment on, the real Ruth would never return. I buried myself under the covers, weeping silently, unable to utter a single word of gratitude. This gift was far too precious, but if nothing could be changed, I was willing to inherit your kindness and keep living. In the days that followed, my mother kept avoiding meeting me. Instead, Nicola began appearing frequently before me, her gaze evasive, always seeming to hesitate before speaking. I ate heartily, and she would tentatively serve me dishes. I quietly curled up in a corner, and she would wash some fruit and casually hand it to me. Even Marlon looked at me with sadness, hesitating for a moment before inviting me to play his favorite game. I didn't understand why, but I wouldn't refuse their kindness. They are my brother and sister, and nothing makes me happier than their genuine acceptance of me. Father was very busy. With a complicated expression, he uttered an apology before immediately turning around and rushing off abroad again. As I ate Nicola's fruit, my heart felt indescribably at ease. There's nothing to apologize for. Everything I enjoy here is given by my family. That evening, Nicola came to my small room. She looked around this place she wouldn't have glanced at before, her face flushing with embarrassment. She sat beside me, thought for a long time, and finally asked slowly, "Why are you different from what I imagined?" I smiled at her and carefully took her hand. "On the first day I came back, you held my hand like this and called me sister. It's normal for an elder sister to take care of her younger sister." "No." Nicola shook her head in embarrassment. "Everyone says I'm not their biological daughter, and that you would compete with me for their affection when you returned. But why don't you fight for anything?" She looked around the small room. "How could you agree to sleep in a place like this? How come you don't hate me at all?" I didn't know what to say, because neither I nor the real Ruth ever had the word hate in our hearts. When I was a beggar, I only felt life was hard, but I never resented my fate. As long as I could eat my fill, I could be happy for the whole day. Ruth is the same. She bears hardships without complaint, yet remains grateful to be alive in this world. Seeing that I remained silent, Nicola looked at me with teary eyes. "Tell me about your past." I slowly began to share some Ruth's past, and my own past. Nicola listened and cried uncontrollably, wiping her tears while apologizing repeatedly. I smiled and reached out, gently stroking her soft hair. "Don't cry. If it weren't for me, you would be the one suffering these hardships. If it had to be..."
But I was overjoyed. This will do. Ruth has bravely taken the first step. The teacher asked if I wanted to return to my original seat, and under Michael's smiling gaze, I shook my head seriously. "Teacher, the class monitor deliberately didn't let me out last time and tried to ignore me. I don't think he's a student of good character and academic excellence, so I don't want to sit with him this time." Michael's face instantly stiffened, and he glared at me angrily, his eyes seeming to spit fire. "Teacher, Ruth is lying. I also don't want a deskmate who lies. Let him sit with someone else." The teacher looked around hesitantly, then finally asked for my opinion. I puffed out my cheeks and chose the blonde-haired boy sleeping at the back of the class. "I'm not a good student and can't keep up with the lessons in a short time. Sitting at the front would only hold back classmates who learn better. This time, I'll definitely be able to start over." My new deskmate was named Martin, with dyed yellow hair and a metal chain around his neck. He looked like trouble at first glance. I cautiously called out to him, waking him up, expecting to be snapped at. I was surprised when Martin just scowled fiercely, grumbled something, and moved to the inner seat. "You girls are such a hassle, always needing to go out between classes. You take the outside seat." I smiled happily and thanked him. Martin was taken aback, glanced at me, scratched his face, and then went back to sleep. I had an exceptionally comfortable class. When it was lunch break, I went to find Nicola. On the way, Michael suddenly pulled me into a corner. He punched me right away. "Ruth, what nonsense were you spouting in class this morning? I'm the class monitor. How dare you say I'm not exemplary in both character and academics?" He glared at me venomously. "I've heard all about it. You're just an unwanted stray child. Where do you get the nerve to oppose me?" I almost reflexively dropped to my knees. Except for the Maxwell family, violence from others still triggers subconscious memories of my past. I knelt there trembling, wondering if I should apologize first, when suddenly an angry shriek came from across the room. "Stop! How dare you hit my sister!" Nicola came running so fast her hair flew behind her. She rushed over and firmly shielded me with her body, her cheeks flushed with rage. She immediately slapped Michael across the face. "Are you trying to die? How dare you bully someone?" Michael was stunned by the beating, left speechless. "Nicola, how could you?" Nicola paid no attention. Her sharp eyes caught sight of Marlon's back and she screamed desperately. "Marlon, big bro, someone's bullying your little sister." Marlon turned around to see the furious Nicola, and behind her, the dumbfounded me still kneeling on the ground. Marlon instantly bristled with rage, charging over and kicking Michael aside with one swift motion. He hurriedly helped me up, and together with Nicola, they looked me over from head to toe. When they saw the swelling at the corner of my mouth, Marlon lunged at Michael like a madman, throwing punch after punch. "You hit my sister. How dare you lay a hand on her? Do you have any idea how much she suffered to come back to me? You bastard." The scene was in complete chaos, as I stood dazed in Nicola's arms, my lips throbbing with pain yet my heart overflowing with warmth. I clung tightly to Nicola, tears of happiness streaming down my face. In the end, this matter still reached my mother's ears. She rushed over immediately and started yelling at Michael and his parents, leaving me utterly stunned. Nicola held my hand and quietly reassured me. "Don't be afraid. Mom is here now. She'll stand up for you." Marlon also shielded me behind him. "I was the one who hit him. If there's trouble, I'll take the blame." I nodded and smiled. In the end, Michael was expelled from school. When it comes to bullying, such behavior must never be tolerated. After returning to the classroom, Martin rarely stayed awake. With a complicated expression, he looked at me and said, "Next time someone bullies you, just drop my name. There's no reason my desk mate, the school's top troublemaker, should get pushed around." I smiled and thanked him as well. After this incident, other ordinary students who suffered from school bullying also found life a bit easier. It was actually inside a car. I want to protect the vulnerable as much as possible and help more people in need. I told my thoughts to my mother, and without hesitation, she used her influence to conduct anti-bullying campaigns across various schools. She also established a dedicated investigation team to ensure every student has the right to bravely say no. After 3 years of diligent study in middle school, I finally passed the entrance exam with a barely acceptable score and was admitted to the same high school as Nicola. Another 3 years of relentless studying followed, and surprisingly, I was admitted to a quite prestigious university. The trajectory of fate had finally reached a complete turning point. While continuing my studies, I used the money I had saved over the years to establish a foundation, helping more impoverished students who couldn't afford to attend school. Nicola and I joined forces to open a shelter, providing a warm haven for homeless children. Later, I never forgot about all those years I secretly ate cat food. I proposed to Marlon and we opened many facilities to adopt stray animals. The world is vast, so vast that light cannot illuminate every dark corner. But I believe there are also countless others like me in this world, striving to hold up whatever light we can. The world will surely become a warmer place. The end.